Get ready to start your engines. The summer drive season is almost upon us, and that means road trips, a lot of sales, and a lot of people coming to your stores. Today, we're going to talk about road trips and how you can take advantage of road trips and what they offer. And we're going to focus in particular on the May Next magazine cover story, which is all about road trips. And joining us today is Steve Holtz. He is the author of the cover story. More important, he's president of Holtz Media Consulting, has 25 years of experience in the industry. We're going to talk about what's in the article. We're just going to talk about what's not in the article, what retailers can do to think about road trips and plan for them and make sure it's a really strong summer. So thanks for joining us today, Steve.
Hey, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So you've covered the industry for a long time. We've both been around about 25 years in the industry. And you get different assignments. So when somebody says, hey, I want you to do an article on road trips, what's your first reaction? Is it like, we need to be serious, we need to be fun, I can't wait? That set us up here with how you approach this story on road trips.
Yeah, good question, actually. I would say I grabbed onto this one pretty quick for a couple of reasons. One, I love a good road trip. I wouldn't call myself an aficionado, but I think my favorite part is the planning, but we can get into that later. And then I've seen other reports on the similar subject, and I've always thought there's another way to do that. And it's that combination of actual useful information plus what can you do with it to make it a little easier to read and more interesting, even if you're not a retailer. So that's usually my goal when I approach a story.
So you also, just thinking about road trips and when we're you always have positive memories of road trips. I've talked to Stephanie Stuckey. One of the things she talks about is, they sell pecan rolls and rubber alligators. It's just fun, happy memories of things that just rubber alligators are kind of meaningless. I don't mean to say bad things about rubber alligators, but it was just those fun things. Now, then you think about what our parents thought, and it's like, man, we fought a lot, all these other things, but you don't think about that. So you take them from both sides. You think about these really wonderful memories of fun, and you don't think about maybe some of the arguing. But when you talk to adults and you ask them about road trips, they also talk about the fun. And we've interviewed consumers over the years. We did a survey last year and we asked, why do you take road trips? By far and away, most consumers said because it's fun. Also on the list, you're more able to visit a bunch of different places. Mm-hmm. It's also more affordable than other modes of transportation. And they also said it harkens back to what they did as a kid. So, there's certainly the fun in the road trip that I think consumers can play off. And you found some really great stores to visit to talk about that fun. One of the highlights is, and to a certain extent, they kind of created the whole road trip mystique is Wall Drug. Talk a little bit about Wall Drug and how did they evolve into being a tourist destination when most people think of the stop as the least exciting part. They've made it the most exciting part sometimes.
Yeah, it's true. Wall Drug in South Dakota, beautiful Wall, South Dakota. I've been there twice, once as a kid, that I barely remember. And then I took my kids in 2016 because of the legend of the billboards of the huge space that they occupy, 70,000 square feet, and the
size of a Buc-ee's.
It's getting there, yeah, absolutely. But this huge store just filled with tchotchkes, snacks, food, necessities, all the good stuff that a good road trip requires, in my opinion. So the way I understand it is the current owner's grandparents started the store back in the 30s. And it was across the street from where it is today, much smaller location. They lived in the back behind a cold curtain So it was a very Spartan situation. And they were this close, holding my fingers really close together, to going out of business. And they said, we've got to do something. And it was the grandmother, whose name escapes me, but she came up with the idea of a billboard. Let's put a billboard or some sort of sign out on the highway coming out of the Badlands, and let people know we're here and offer them something. At the time, I believe they had what she called the largest fountain, drink fountain in the Midwest. Mm-hmm. And nobody knew about it because they were in a small town in the middle of nowhere. So they played that up, and a couple of the other things that were important to their sales. And at the bottom, what they wrote was free ice water. This apparently was the big traffic driver, mm-hmm. Because it is the 30s and going into the 40s, and cars don't have air conditioning. You're in the middle of northern Midwest where it's hot. It's the desert. Mm-hmm. And people needed a place to stop, even without the fuel concept out front. And that was drawing them in. According to legend, they went out, painted their first sign, did it by hand, and before they got back to the store, people were pulling up asking about that free water. So from there, they took it and grew it to where today I believe they have 300 some billboards throughout South Dakota and a few in neighboring states as well. It really sets expectations, and I think makes you stand out with that curiosity of what is this place, even if I've never heard of it.
And one other thing with Wall Drug, I was there once, and I got a picture of me on the jackalope. Now, jackalope's not a real thing; it's paper mache or some fiberglass or something like that. But there's almost like the two ends. You have the very simplistic, old school billboard, which is awesome at communicating a message, and then if you stick a fiberglass jackalope, some idiot's going to want to sit on it and take a picture. And, that idiot posted to it on social media. So, there's like the two things. How do you get somebody there? And then how do you get somebody talking about it? And certainly the social media component. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later. I want to stay on billboards for a minute, because you also visited or talked about Jones Petroleum, which is in Georgia.
Yes.
And they do the same thing. I already mentioned Buc-ee's. We don't need to talk about the whole show about Buc-ee's, but the same kind of concept. And what I think all these stores do really well is a lot of times you make your decision on what to do in the moment. Somebody kind of raises their hand and says, I need fill in the blank when you're in the car. And then it's whatever the next exit is. You look at those blue highway signs and it gives you 4 or 5 choices. You make your pick. But the billboards take that away because it says, oh, I saw a billboard and you're hungry, you're thirsty, you have to use a restroom, you need gas, whatever it is, I want to go there instead. So it kind of puts it in your head before you need it. And I think that's a real affordable opportunity for a lot of retailers. And you don't have to be a Buc-ee's, you don't have to be a Walls, you don't have to be a south of the border. Jones does it very well. Similar thing, where about 80 miles out, they say, we know you want to see these bathrooms, they're amazing. And they are amazing.
Yes. The Jones Travel Center, or JP Travel Center, is the home of the Golden Toilet.
Yes.
And they've got it bigger than life up on that billboard, letting you know that it's there and really setting expectations that this is going to be one hell of a bathroom I'm about to visit. So is there actually a toilet that is painted gold or gold colored in there? I guess I didn't ask that question. Maybe I should have. But you want to know what this experience is going to be like. And you're on the road anyway. Ice water's only so of a draw at this point compared to the 30s. So it makes sense to create something that's going to be necessary probably within that next 80 miles.
So in the article, you talked about some of the things that best in class do to make sure, and it could be billboards, you plan that months in advance, because summer drive, you have about 100 days. A lot of retailers talk about the 100 days of summer, and that's depending on where you are, that could be a big hunk of your sales. So you went through prepping stores, cleaning, and making sure you're set for the season. Now, we're pretty close to this, but there's still a little bit of time.
Mm-hmm.
That you talked about that as a really important element in making sure your stores shine. Anything around that you feel is a good tip, even as road trip time is upon us?
Sure. More than 90 days out, you probably want to be thinking about how much staffing you're going to need, and how you're going to staff up, where you're going to find those folks. Two, what that summer merchandise set is going to look like. When I talked to Wall Drug, I believe it was the middle of January, and they were saying they're taking in deliveries right now for the road trip season. That makes up those 6 months of the year. That's a long season. Make up about I believe they said 80% of their sales all year long. So they need to be set ahead of time and not be worried about running out. And then number 3 is that schedule for how often are we going to make the donuts, clean the restroom, just do all the things that keep that experience really paying off. And having a long-term plan for that ahead of time seemed to me in reporting this to be probably the most important thing.
Mm-hmm. And then going along with that is any merchandise. I talked about the rubber alligators, but if there's something there that I think we all have memories from road trips as something that we kept as a kid multiple years, even though it was not very expensive. It just had a memory associated with it. And the merchandise, there are some opportunities, whether it's something regional, something regional sports related, or just something that just plays well with kids in cars.
True. Well, from that 2016 visit to Wall Drug, I've still got the bumper sticker. I didn't put it on the car. It's over here in my mudroom, where I've been looking at it for pushing 10 years now. So I'll always remember it based on that, if nothing else.
And your kids have now been there, and it's like, hey, let's go there again sometime.
Remember Wall Drug? Yeah. Remember where we had that elk burger? Yeah, that's the place.
So the other thing in talking about preparation is you made a point of mentioning, know what's coming through town. Now, it could be a music festival. It could be sporting event or sporting events. And it doesn't have to be like a Super Bowl. It could be, you could be in an area where there's travel sports, soccer, whatever it is, where people are coming through town. So, it's really important as you're looking at scheduling to also look at whether it's a major highway or whether it's, just a busy traffic road. What are those events that tie into somebody on a road trip that you can communicate to and take advantage of solving their problems?
Right, absolutely. I think that was one of the other important angles to take in the story. Not all of us can be Wall Drug or Wally's or whatever, where you can build that 70,000, 50,000 square foot store. We've got a typical size convenience store or gas station, and we still want to be able to take advantage of that. The folks I talked to at Synergy Co-op up in Wisconsin, about a dozen, 15 so stores, we're doing that really well. They know about the local concerts. They know the hot fishing spots where people come up for fishing derbies and things like that. And they're playing off that with their street side signage and their radio commercials to let folks know, as you're coming through for this fest, make sure you stop by and stock up on this, that, or the other thing. So that seemed to be really important for that local angle.
Mm-hmm. And then a thing that may go along with that festival, whether they need more picnic supplies because, or paper plates or something like that, because they're more likely to be camping for a couple of days, and
Right.
There's some really interesting opportunities there. It doesn't have to be the highway; it's wherever. How do you fit in with somebody's destination and what they need along the way?
Right, right. And actually, I would say I would call out that I have a second story in the May issue of Nax magazine about selling bait, among other
Hmm.
things, on the forecourt or in the store. And I think as part of road trip season, that falls right into it. If you're within a mile or two of a fishing hole, um, bait can be a major reason that folks will stop, make it their last stop before they get to the lake to get, I believe the quote was bait, beer, and there was another B word in there that's escaping me. Maybe it was beverages.
Hmm.
But those were the things that added up to increasing sales. Um, uh, Regardless, if you could get them there for the bait, they were going to buy something else.
Absolutely. And I think there's all kinds of opportunities. It's just like, what are people doing? How are they moving? How are they acting? And what can you do about that?
Right.
You also talked about Tioga, which is
Yes.
just on the other side of Yellowstone. We were there on a road trip in 2009,
Okay.
and it was great. They have an outdoor concert area. They had a band. They had something. Well, I don't think it was elk burgers. I think it was actual elk steaks. They had mango margaritas. And on the way out, we had to pick up something for, when we were hanging out in our RV-ish vehicle. We bought a bottle of wine and ant killer. And I just remember the guys going like, I don't know if they thought we were from Breaking Bad or they just thought, something else. But it's like, I've not seen that combination before. So, all people, all things. But you also talked to the folks at Tioga, and that's a really cool operation that is not necessarily the stop, but it's a destination.
Yeah. Yeah. This is one I haven't had the pleasure of visiting yet. I would like to, though. They're on the outskirts of Yosemite.
Yosemite, yeah, I said Yellowstone, yes.
Yeah, the last stop before you get to one of the major entrances there. And their season is super short because they get snowed in most of the time, and you're not going down that road anytime soon. So they take advantage when they can, again, by planning ahead. And even though they may not open the doors till May 1st, in February, they're thinking about what products they need to get in and what the menu is going to look like and things like that. I think what's cool about them is they have taken that idea of being a restaurant first as absolutely primary to their business. If you Google Tioga Gas Mart, what you're going to find is a website that goes to their restaurant, the Wonelli Deli. And that's going to be the entrance point to this location. The reason that you might go there, because you're going to need somewhere to eat while you're out there in the middle of nowhere in Yosemite. And the menu that they offer, like you were saying, is luxurious and above and beyond what anyone's probably expecting out of a gas station.
Yeah, and I think we've talked a bit about how whether it's stores or whether it's stores during road trips, how do you change the mindset from this is a place I have to stop because I need something to this is a place I want to stop.
Right.
And that just sets up customer experience and how do you make them come back to you?
Mm-hmm.
And it's about the food, it's about the employees, it's about the vibe, it's about it's hard to explain, but you know it when you walk in a store like that. And it's almost like you need the alien eyes of a friend to say, hey, we have that vibe going.
Right. Exactly. And that's where I mentioned earlier that one of my favorite parts of a road trip is actually planning it. I'm not one of those, we're going to get on the road today and we're not stopping except for gas till we get to our destination, 1,000 miles away or whatever it is. I would rather stop at regular intervals and visit those communities and find out what the local food is, what the local beer is, things like that. And just take some time and visit. And even if it's a short trip that takes 6 days, so be it. It's that opportunity to see what else is out there across the country.
So I think you probably made a lot of friends now. I want to go on a road trip with you. That's the way to do them. And maybe it's time to rent one of those like Partridge Family buses,
Yes.
and you can take a whole bunch of people wherever you plan on. If you're in the planning, I think we have something cooking here. So
Let's do it because my wife hates the way I do them. So
so what? We talked about bathrooms. We don't need to linger on that because that is really important, though. It starts with a bathroom, and we all know if you walk into the bathroom and the bathroom disappoints, there's somebody in that family that's going to say, "Let's get out of here right now. I don't want to try the food. I don't care what the reviews say. We're gone." But there was something that you had in there in your article I thought was really interesting, and the phrase was "work campers," and I was introduced to the term recently where I talked to people from Australia and they said, in the outback or, areas that are really remote, they have trouble getting people to work in their stores because they're so spread apart. And they said what they call them? They called them the gray RV group and people like that, where people will RV, but they may hang out for a month or 3 in an area and they would hire them. And they would talk them up at RV parks and all that. But is that similar? How does that the same and different than your work camper that you mentioned?
Well, for one thing, it doesn't sound quite as alien as gray RV guys, but I think it sounds like it's a similar concept. I hadn't heard of this either and learned about it from the folks at Wall Drug. They've had issues where back in the day, they could staff up for the busy season with high school kids, college kids, whatever, and they were all pretty local, and it was no big deal. That's been getting harder and harder because there's so many new opportunities for college students, it's interns and things like that. So they're pretty much trying to split their hiring, which adds about for the busy season, they put on something like 115 employees above and beyond the rest of the year. And that's for one store, remember. It's a big store. They need
Yes, it is.
And about a piece of that is often international students who are working on work visas. And that's been getting harder and harder to hire through. And it sounds like it's going to continue to be that way. And the other half is this idea of work campers, one word spelled with a K. Basically, yes, apparently there's a whole community of RV folks who, or they might live in a tent too. Who knows? Will come out, dedicate themselves to staying at one campground for a month or more, and you can go to this website or multiple websites and find area retail sites, restaurants, other places in these areas of road trip destinations where you can find part-time or full-time work. So during the day, maybe you go work the store, and then at night you go back and enjoy a little late fishing or whatever and sleep in your camper. This whole community is, frankly, I guess, pretty dedicated to the concept and always looking for new places to work on the road. So they're sharing ideas with each other online and things like that to share the news of who's hiring.
I think that's a really cool idea. And not only do you go back to the RV park and do whatever you do hanging out, but you also talk up the place you just worked at. So your instant marketing as well. And I left out one important word with the gray RV. They were retirees, so they weren't aliens. The gray referenced their hair, not their skin color. So that's why they had, and they were able to travel for a month or something like that. But
gotcha.
Roswell, maybe that's a different story. Who knows?
I was looking for a place to feature in Roswell, and it just had, for some reason, they didn't call me back.
Oh well. There are some alien themed or some space. I think there's a couple stores called Space Age that are still around in
that's right.
in Oregon, and they have some cool looks. But thinking, there's a lot in this story. There's a lot in your other story on bait, and didn't want to combine the two. I'm glad we talked about them both. But if there's one big takeaway that you would have for retailers, whether it's this year or whether it's next year, what would you tell them about road trips and what they might want to consider?
Boy, I'm going to say that maybe it's not a secret, but the secret here is know why people might be passing through. Why are they coming through your area, and where are they headed? And can you capitalize on that through, like you said, the tchotchkes, through postcards, through local paraphernalia. Jones Petroleum has a local University of Georgia shirts, sweatshirts, all kinds of flags, the big #1 foam finger right inside their door, because they know that's what's bringing people to town, specifically at certain sporting seasons of the year. So it's really understanding who's in your market, what they're looking for, like we talked about, the festivals, the must-stop locations, and things like that you can sort of partner with and make hay. Tioga says more often than not, when people are on their way home from Yosemite, they get compliments that Tioga's got better souvenirs than the on-park shops do. So it's understanding those people, who's coming through. They may not become your loyalty customers because they're only passing through this one time, but while they're there, you can make hay.
And they also, while they may not come back, they may tell people they love the experience in social media, and next thing you know, some idiot's on a jackalope and people are liking it. So that's how it works. So yes, and I think you could probably still find that picture somewhere along the way, but it's not too hard to find, and the internet's forever. So you have a podcast, and
yes,
we were on it, and we wound up talking about music at the end. So road trips, it's also timely. Didn't plan on this question, but do's and don'ts for music in the car, whether you're traveling with a family or whether you're traveling by yourself. Any suggestions for the music?
Oh, God, that's funny. So the first road trip I took with my family, the first major one, let's put it that way, was out to Mount Rushmore from Chicago. And, I had my iPod all, filled with all this variety of music and all different genres, and, toyed with it in the car on and off when we couldn't get local radio. And the only thing that really connected with the entire family was TV boy band Big Time Rush, which, and I remember that because I specifically posted about it on Facebook and said, what am I doing wrong with this group? Because this is all they really listened to. So we must have listened to their, at the time, one CD over and over and over again.
But I guarantee if they were happy, you were happier, despite the music. And Mount Rushmore, by the way, one of those places that I didn't think would live up to expectations. It exceeded expectations.
Yeah.
I thought it was amazing.
Yeah. It's pretty neat.
Very impressive.
Agreed. Now, that whole region is beautiful to look at.
Yeah. So I mentioned podcast. Let's talk about your podcast. How can people find out about that? And how can they find out more about Steve and what you're working on?
So the name of the podcast, Convenience Weekly, and I operate completely independent from any formal news outlets in the industry beyond some of the freelance work that I'm doing, like the stories I did for y'all. And I'm taking the first half of the podcast for the most part and running through the top stories of the past week. And then for the second half, I'm trying to land a quality interview with someone who's related to one or more of those stories within the podcast. So been going for about 2 months now. Jeff was nice enough to be my first guest. Appreciate that. And trying to build an audience there. So I encourage you to Google Convenience Weekly or search it on Spotify. That's my home base. Beyond that, Holtz Media Consulting is looking to help retailers and suppliers share their news with the industry, get their press releases written, published, follow-up stories, and all that good stuff. So if you get to the podcast, you can find my email address and contact me from there.
Well, it's weekly, so there's going to be a new one next week, and there's a new one after that. So if you have story ideas for either me or Steve, shoot them our way. Who knows? We both may bite on them. Maybe we can figure out some sort of synergies on one of these things. So we'll figure it out. But Steve, thank you very much for joining us today, and also just for your 25 years leading industry image. That's really our jobs is to brag about the industry and make people like our industry as much as we do. And that means the general public. And you can see a big difference in the last quarter century for how our industry is perceived. So there's a whole bunch of us that played a role, and I know you did. So appreciate that as well. And I hope we're talking again.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thanks so much.
And thank you all for listening to Convenience Matters.
Convenience Matters is brought to you by NACS and produced in partnership with Human Factor. For more information, visit convenience.org.